The asteroid field was worse than anything the crew of the Defiant had ever seen. Massive rocks tumbled through space in unpredictable patterns, some spinning so fast they created gravity wells that pulled smaller debris into deadly spirals. Pete Collins worked his controls with steady hands, threading the ship between obstacles that could crush them in an instant. "There!" Dr. Hayes pointed at the main screen. "That's got to be them!" The alien ship hung motionless between two house-sized asteroids, looking like a wounded bird. Its hull was elegant and curved, made of some kind of white metal that gleamed even in the dim starlight. But deep gashes ran along its sides, and pieces of debris floated around it like a metal cloud. "Beautiful design," whispered Ben Clark. "Look how smooth those lines are. It's like they built it for comfort, rather than survival." Commander Morrison studied the vessel carefully. It was about the same size as the Defiant, but where the human ship was built with thick armor and redundant systems, the alien craft looked delicate, almost fragile. "Scan for life signs," Morrison ordered. "I'm reading 17 individuals aboard," reported Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez from the science station. "Their biosignatures are strange, though. Much weaker than human readings." "Try to establish communication," Morrison said. "Let them know we're here to help." Ben adjusted his communications array and sent a simple mathematical message, the same kind Dr. Hayes had decoded from their distress signal. Minutes passed before a response came back, filled with what could only be excitement and relief. "They're definitely happy to see us," Ben reported. "But now they're sending something else. Dr. Hayes, you need to look at this." Dr. Hayes hurried to the communications station and studied the incoming data. Her face went pale as she read the translation the computer was providing. "What is it?" Morrison asked. They're asking what planet we come from," she said, slowly. "And they want to know our environmental requirements before we board their ship." "Standard procedure for first contact." Morrison nodded. "Send them Earth's basic data: gravity, atmosphere, temperature ranges." Dr. Hayes worked at her console for several minutes, encoding Earth's information into the mathematical language they had established. When she sent it, the response was immediate and shocking. "Sir," Ben said, his voice tight with concern, "they've stopped responding. All communication has ceased. On the alien ship," Captain Zeftar stared at his translation, console in absolute horror. "The data couldn't be correct. No species could possibly survive on such a world." "Run the translation again," he ordered Yithine. "I've checked it 3 times, Captain," she replied, her voice shaking. "Gravity nearly twice our standard. Atmospheric. Pressure that would crush most species. Temperature variations that swing from freezing to lethally hot. Weather patterns that include destructive storms. Geological instability with regular seismic events." Coleman looked up from his engineering station, his eyes wide with fear. "Captain, they're from a Class 12 Deathworld. I didn't even know such places could support life." Zeftar felt his blood chill. In all the galaxy, Class 12 worlds were considered the most hostile environments possible. They were planets where the very air was poison, where the ground shook. Regularly, where storms could level cities. Most species couldn't even visit such worlds with protective suits. "What kind of beings could evolve on such a place?" Yithine whispered. Before Zeftar could answer, new signals came from the human ship. They were asking permission to board and offer assistance. The captain felt torn between desperate need for help and absolute terror at the thought of creatures from such a world coming aboard his ship. On the Defiant, Morrison was growing worried about the sudden silence. Maybe we should try a different approach, Dr. Hayes suggested. Send them visual communication. Let them see we're peaceful. Good idea. Ben, open a visual channel. The main screen flickered and then showed the bridge of the alien ship. The humans got their first look at another intelligent species, and the sight was remarkable. The aliens were tall and slender, with pale blue skin that seemed almost translucent. Their eyes were large and dark, set in faces that were both beautiful and fragile-looking. But what struck the humans most was the fear in those alien eyes. The creatures on the screen looked absolutely terrified. "Hello," Morrison said slowly, hoping his body language would convey peaceful intent. "We received your distress signal. We want to help." On the alien ship, Zeftar saw the human commander for the first time. The creature was powerfully built, with thick bones and heavy muscles, that spoke of evolution on a high-gravity world. Its skin was dark and looked tough, adapted to resist environmental dangers. But despite its fearsome appearance, its eyes seemed kind, and its posture suggested peaceful intentions. "They look like warriors," Coleman breathed. "Deathworlders," Yatheen corrected. "Beings evolved to survive in conditions that would kill us in minutes." Zeftar gathered his courage. His people were dying, and these creatures, however terrifying, were offering help. We accept your assistance," he said carefully in the mathematical language they had established. Morrison smiled, and even that expression seemed dangerous. To the watching aliens, showing teeth that looked designed for tearing. "We're sending over a small team. They'll help repair your ship and treat any injuries." Zeftar wanted to refuse, but another emergency alarm chose that moment to sound, reminding him that his ship had less than 4 hours of life support remaining. "We will allow 3 of your people aboard," he said finally. Morrison turned to his crew. "Sam, you'll lead the boarding party. Take Katie from medical and Alex for security. Full environmental suits, and remember this is first contact. Every move we make will be studied and remembered." Lieutenant Rodriguez nodded. A career military officer with calm nerves and steady hands, he was the natural choice to represent humanity in this historic moment. Medic Katie White gathered her medical supplies, while Security Chief Alex Turner checked his equipment one final time. "Remember," Morrison told them before they left, "they seem frightened of us. Move slowly, speak softly, and don't do anything that might seem threatening." As the human shuttle approached the alien ship, Zeftar watched through his view screen and wondered if he was making the greatest mistake of his life. The shuttle itself looked dangerous, built like a military craft rather than a rescue vehicle. Everything about these humans suggested they came from a world where violence and death were common. But as his ship shuddered again and the lights dimmed further, he realized he had no choice. His people needed help, and these terrifying Deathworlders were the only ones who had answered their call. Captain Zeftar's long fingers trembled as he gripped the command console of the Serenity's Grace. The ship shuddered violently around him, throwing his crew against their stations. Warning lights flashed red across the bridge, and the air tasted of burnt circuits and fear. "Hull breach in Section 7, called out Navigator Yatheen, her voice high with panic. "Life support failing in Sections 3 through 9. Zeftar closed his eyes for a moment, trying to steady his breathing. In his 300 years of life, he had never faced anything like this. The Villani were a peaceful people, explorers and scientists who had never known true danger. Their ships were built for comfort and research, not survival in hostile conditions. "How long do we have?" he asked quietly. Chief Engineer Coleman looked up from his damaged console, his pale blue skin even paler than usual. 6 hours, maybe. 7 if we shut down non-essential systems. The asteroid field tore through our hull like paper. I've never seen rocks move so fast or hit so hard. The bridge fell silent except for the hiss of escaping air and the groan of twisted metal. Zeftar stared at the view screen, which showed the deadly asteroid field that had nearly destroyed them. The rocks tumbled through space in chaotic patterns, some as large as their ship, moving at speeds that defied their navigation systems. "Sir," Yethin spoke softly, "should we prepare the emergency pods?" Zeftar shook his head. "The pods would never survive that field. We need help, but there are no Federation ships in this sector." "We could send a general distress signal," suggested Coleman. "Cast it wide across all frequencies. Maybe someone will hear us." "Anyone could answer," Yethin whispered. "Even unfriendly species." Zeftar knew what she meant. The galaxy held many dangers beyond asteroid fields. Pirates, slavers, and worse things lurked in the empty spaces between civilized worlds. But as another shudder ran through the ship, he realized they had no choice. "Send the signal," he ordered. "All frequencies, maximum power. Include our coordinates and the nature of our emergency." Across the void of space, the distress call traveled at light speed, spreading outward like ripples on a pond. The signal carried the desperation of a dying ship and the hope that someone, anyone, would hear and come to help. Far away, aboard the human exploration vessel UES Defiant, Communications Officer Ben Clark was running his usual scans when something unusual appeared on his screens. He leaned forward, adjusting the controls with practiced ease. "Commander Morrison," he called across the bridge. "I'm picking up what looks like a distress signal. It's not coming from any human ship." Commander Jake Morrison stood up from his captain's chair, a tall man with graying hair and sharp eyes. He had spent 15 years in space, exploring the outer systems and mapping new worlds for the Earth Colonial Authority. "What kind of signal?" "Unknown origin, sir. The language is completely foreign, but the mathematical patterns suggest it's definitely a distress call. They're in serious trouble." Dr. Lisa Hayes, the ship's xenobiologist, looked up from her research station with excitement. "Sir, if this is from a non-human source, this could be our first contact with alien life." Morrison nodded slowly. Throughout humanity's expansion into space, they had found dead worlds, ancient ruins, and signs that other intelligent species had once existed. But they had never encountered living aliens. The possibility both thrilled and worried him. "Can you get a location?" Morrison asked. Ben worked his controls for several minutes. "Yes, sir. The signal is coming from the Kepler 442 system, about 3 light-years from our current position. If we push our engines, we could be there in 18 hours. "What about translation?" Morrison turned to Dr. Hayes. "I can work on it during the journey," she replied eagerly. "The computer can analyze the mathematical components and look for patterns. We might be able to establish basic communication." Chief Engineer Pete Collins spoke up from his station. "Sir, changing course will delay our survey mission by at least a week." Morrison considered this. Their current mission was to map mineral resources in the outer colonies, important work, but not urgent. If there really were aliens out there and they needed help, humanity had a duty to respond. "Set course for Kepler 442, maximum safe speed," Morrison ordered. "And alert the crew. If we're about to make first contact, everyone needs to be ready." The Defiant changed direction, its powerful engines pushing the ship toward an encounter that would change everything for both species. In his quarters, Morrison reviewed everything humanity knew about possible alien contact. The protocols were clear. Approach peacefully, offer assistance if needed, and avoid any action that might be seen as threatening. Dr. Hayes worked through the night, running the alien signal through every analysis program the ship carried. Slowly, patterns emerged. The mathematical base seemed to be 12 rather than 10. The signal repeated certain sequences that clearly indicated emergency, damage, and a plea for help. "It's definitely a distress call," she reported to Morrison the next morning. "They're in severe trouble. Life support failure, hull breaches, and they're requesting immediate assistance from any ship that receives their message." "Any indication of what they're like?" Morrison asked. "The signal suggests they're advanced enough for space travel, probably similar to our technology level. But there's something odd about their power signatures. Everything seems designed for very stable, controlled conditions." As the Defiant approached the Kepler 442 system, the crew prepared for their first encounter with alien life. Security teams checked their equipment, making sure they were ready to defend the ship if necessary. Medical staff prepared isolation chambers in case of biological contamination. Scientists gathered every scanning device they could find. "Signals getting stronger," Ben reported. "And I'm picking up engine signatures. There's definitely a ship out there." On the view screen, the Kepler 442 system appeared as a distant star, surrounded by the chaos of an asteroid field. Somewhere in that dangerous maze of tumbling rocks, aliens waited for rescue, not knowing that their saviors came from a world that most of the galaxy considered too dangerous for life. The Defiant moved forward into the asteroid field, beginning humanity's first contact with the wider galaxy. The docking bay of the Serenity's Grace felt like stepping into an alien dream. Lieutenant Rodriguez led his team through the airlock, their heavy boots making sounds that seemed impossibly loud in the refined space. Everything around them was curved and smooth, made of materials that gleamed like pearl. The air smelled of flowers and something else, something clean and pure. "Incredible," Katie White breathed through her helmet radio. "It's like they built this place as art rather than just transportation." 3 aliens waited for them in the docking bay, staying well back from the airlock. Rodriguez could see their fear clearly. The way they held themselves ready to run, the quick, shallow breathing that made their chest coverings flutter. "Hello," Rodriguez said softly, raising his hands to show they were empty. "I'm Sam Rodriguez. This is Katie White, our medic, and Alex Turner, our security officer." The tallest alien stepped forward carefully. Even through the translation device, his voice carried obvious nervousness. "I am Captain Zeftar. These are Navigator Yathine and Engineer Coleman. We thank you for coming despite the risks." "Risks?" Alex asked, confused. Zeftar's large eyes grew even wider. "You come from a Class 12 Deathworld. Surely you understand that most species cannot survive such proximity to beings evolved in such conditions." The humans exchanged glances. Rodriguez had studied first contact protocols, but nothing had prepared him for being feared as a monster. "We're just here to help," Katie said gently. "May I examine your wounded?" "Wounded?" Zeftar looked puzzled. "We have no wounded. We have 17 crew members in various states of environmental distress." "I don't understand," Katie replied. "Environmental distress?" Engineer Coleman spoke up, his voice trembling. The hull breaches have caused temperature fluctuations of nearly 3 degrees. Several crew members are suffering from exposure. 2 have experienced pressure variations that damage their inner ear systems. Katie stared at him through her helmet. 3 degrees? On Earth, humans worked outside in temperature swings of 40 degrees or more, and pressure variations that hurt. Their ears? Humans regularly dove underwater or climbed mountains with much greater pressure changes. How fragile are your people? She asked carefully. Fragile? Yatheen sounded offended. We are perfectly adapted to normal conditions. Stable temperature, consistent pressure, clean air, mild radiation levels. Rodriguez was beginning to understand. When you say normal conditions, what exactly do you mean? Zeftar gestured toward a wall display that showed environmental readings. Standard galactic conditions, of course, temperature variance of less than 2 degrees, pressure stability within 0.1%, atmospheric purity of 99% or higher. Alex whistled softly. Captain, on Earth, we consider that kind of stability laboratory conditions. Most of our planet varies much more than that. But how do you survive? Coleman asked in amazement. Such variations would cause cellular damage, respiratory failure, psychological trauma. Katie was studying her scanner readings of the aliens. What she saw made her worry about even breathing near them. Their bone density was incredibly low, their muscle mass minimal. Their skin was so thin she could see blood vessels beneath it. They looked like they had evolved in zero gravity with perfect climate control. We need to see your damaged areas, Rodriguez said. Can you show us the hull breaches? Zeftar led them through corridors that were more like art galleries than spaceship passageways. Everything was soft curves and gentle lighting, designed for comfort rather than function. The humans felt like giants walking through a palace made for children. When they reached the damaged section, Rodriguez had to fight not to laugh. What the aliens called devastating hull breaches were tiny holes, none larger than his fist. On a human ship, such damage would be fixed with some metal patches and welding. The aliens were treating it like a catastrophic emergency. This is the main breach, Zeftar said, pointing to a hole maybe 6 inches across. It has caused our entire environmental system to become unstable. Katie pulled out her medical scanner and checked the air quality. Captain Rodriguez, the atmosphere in here is still better than most human cities. The oxygen level is actually higher than Earth normal. But the contamination, Yatheen protested. Foreign particles, temperature variation, the horror of unfiltered space mixing with our air. Alex knelt down next to the hull breach and examined it closely. This is easy to fix. We can patch this in about 10 minutes with basic repair tools. Impossible, Coleman said. Our emergency teams estimated 6 days of work with specialized equipment. Your emergency teams probably never had to make repairs under pressure, Alex replied. On Earth, we fix things while they're breaking. We work in storms, earthquakes, fires. This is calm and quiet compared to normal human working conditions. As if to prove his point, Alex pulled out a portable welder and began sealing the breach immediately. The aliens jumped back in terror as sparks flew, but the human worked, calmly, his hands steady despite the dangerous equipment. How can he work with such violence so close to his body? Yatheen whispered to Zeftar. They evolved on a world where violence is normal, Zeftar whispered back. They probably face death every day. Katie was examining one of the aliens, who was supposedly suffering from environmental distress. The creature was lying on what looked like a medical bed, breathing quickly and showing signs of stress. but her scanner showed nothing wrong except elevated anxiety levels. "What exactly are his symptoms?" she asked the alien medic who was attending. "Temperature shock, pressure trauma, atmospheric contamination syndrome," the medic replied gravely. Katie checked her readings again. The alien's body temperature had varied by less than 1 degree. The pressure changes were so minor her equipment barely registered them, and the air contamination was practically non-existent. "On Earth," she said carefully, "we would consider these normal daily variations. Humans experience these kinds of changes just by walking from one room to another." The alien medic stared at her in horror. "Your people endure such trauma regularly? How do you maintain sanity?" "We don't consider it trauma," Katie explained. "Our bodies are built to handle much worse conditions. We evolved to survive in a world that changes constantly." Rodriguez finished examining the damage and turned to Zeftar. "Captain, we can have your ship fully repaired in about 2 hours. The damage really isn't that serious." 2 hours? Zeftar couldn't believe it. "Our engineers said the repairs would take weeks, if they were possible at all." "Human engineering is different," Rodriguez explained. "We're used to fixing things quickly under dangerous conditions. On Earth, waiting weeks for repairs could mean death." As the humans worked, the aliens watched in amazement and growing fear. These creatures moved with confidence through conditions that would terrify most galactic species. They handled dangerous tools like they were toys. They worked in damaged areas without protective gear, breathing contaminated air as if it were nothing. "What kind of world produces such beings?" Ytheen asked Zeftar quietly. "A world that kills the weak and makes the strong into something beyond our understanding," Zeftar replied, watching Alex Turner repair systems that had seemed hopelessly damaged just hours before. But despite their fear, the aliens began to feel something else. Hope. These terrifying Deathworlders were saving their lives with casual ease. Maybe, Zeftar thought, there were worse things in the galaxy than having monsters for rescuers. The repairs were finished in 90 minutes, not 2 hours, as Rodriguez had predicted. The aliens watched in stunned silence as the humans sealed the last hull breach and restored their environmental systems to full function. What their best engineers had called impossible, these Deathworlders had completed before lunch. "Your ship is secure now," Rodriguez reported to Captain Zeftar. "All hull breaches sealed, environmental systems stabilized, and we've improved your air recycling efficiency by about 15%. Zeftar stared at his ship's status displays. Every system showed green, perfect operation. The temperature had stabilized exactly where his people needed it. The air was cleaner than it had been before the accident. It was like magic. "How?" he asked simply. Katie White looked up from her medical scanner. "We're used to working under pressure. On Earth, emergency repairs happen during earthquakes, storms, even while under attack. This was actually quite peaceful." "Under attack?" Navigator Ytheen's voice was barely a whisper. "Well, not literally under attack," Katie clarified quickly, seeing the alien's fear. "I meant more like natural disasters. Earth has a lot of those." Alex Turner was packing his tools when he noticed the alien staring at him. "Something wrong?" "You repaired our quantum containment field with a simple molecular welder," Engineer Coleman said in amazement. "That should be impossible. The precision required, the steady hands needed to work so close to dangerous energy." Alex shrugged. "I've welded underwater during hurricanes. This was actually pretty easy." The casual way he said it made the aliens Exchange worried glances. What kind of world required welding during hurricanes? Perhaps, Zeftar said carefully. You could tell us about your world. We know very little about Class 12 environments. Rodriguez activated his portable communicator. Commander Morrison, the aliens would like to learn about Earth. Permission. To share basic information? Morrison's voice crackled through the device. Granted, but keep it simple. We don't want to terrify them more than necessary. Rodriguez looked at the three aliens, trying to figure out how to explain Earth without causing panic. Our world is more active than yours. The surface changes regularly. Weather moves across the continents, bringing different temperatures and conditions. How different? Ythene asked nervously. Well, some places can be 50 degrees below zero, others over 50 degrees above. Sometimes in the same location during different seasons. Coleman made a sound like a strangled gasp. 100-degree temperature range? How do your people survive such extremes? We adapt, Katie said. We wear different clothing, build shelters, move to different areas when needed. Humans are very good at adapting. And the storms you mentioned? Zeftar asked. Alex grinned, not realizing how his expression looked to the aliens. Oh, Earth has great storms. Hurricanes with winds over 200 kilometers per hour. Tornadoes that can pick up houses. Thunderstorms with lightning that can kill you if you're standing in the wrong place. The aliens were now holding on to their chairs, looking sick. But that's not the really dangerous stuff, Katie added helpfully. Earthquakes can level entire cities in minutes. Volcanoes can destroy everything for hundreds of kilometers. Tsunamis can wash away coastlines. Stop, Zeftar pleaded. Please, stop. How does any life survive on such a world? Rodriguez realized they were going about this wrong. Captain, it's not as bad as it sounds. Humans have lived on Earth for thousands of years. We've learned to work with the dangers, not against them. Our world made us strong, but it also made us careful and clever. The Federation has files on worlds like yours, Ythene said quietly. Class 12 deathworlds. We thought they were theoretical, places too dangerous for any life to evolve intelligence. What does the Federation say about such worlds? Katie asked curiously. Zeftar hesitated, then activated his ship's database. A holographic display appeared, showing a classification system for planets. The Galactic Federation rates worlds from Class 1 to Class 12 based on environmental hostility. Class 1 worlds are garden planets with perfect conditions. Class 12 worlds are considered uninhabitable by any known species. The display showed Earth's classification, Class 12 Deathworld. Below it was a long list of environmental hazards, extreme temperature variations, violent weather patterns, geological instability, dangerous radiation levels, toxic atmospheric components, aggressive biological life forms. Aggressive biological life forms? Alex asked. Your world has predators, Coleman explained. Animals that kill and eat other animals. Most civilized worlds eliminated such creatures long ago. Eliminated? Rodriguez was shocked. But predators are part of the natural balance. Without them, prey species would overpopulate and destroy their environments. Another sign of Deathworld. Thinking, Ythene whispered. They see violence as natural and necessary. Katie was studying the classification system with interest. What class world do you come from? Velan Prime is a Class 2 world, Zeftar said proudly. Stable climate, no dangerous weather, gentle geological activity, perfectly balanced atmosphere. Sounds boring, Alex said without thinking, then quickly added, I mean, peaceful. Very peaceful. How many species are in this federation? Rodriguez asked. Currently, we have 47 member species, Zeftar replied. All from Class 1. Through Class 4 worlds. No species from higher class worlds has ever been encountered. Because you avoid them, Katie realized. Of course we avoid them, Yathine said, sounding surprised. Why would any sane species visit a death world? The dangers would be overwhelming. Rodriguez was beginning to understand the bigger picture. So when our species finally develops space travel and starts exploring, we're going to seem like monsters to everyone else. Not monsters, Zeftar said carefully, but certainly unprecedented. The Federation has protocols for first contact, but they all assume contact with species from safe worlds. No one ever planned for meeting Deathworlders. What will happen when we make official contact? Katie asked. I don't know, Zeftar admitted. This situation has never occurred before. The Federation Council will have to decide whether humans can be considered safe for interaction with other species. Alex laughed, not realizing how the sound made the aliens flinch. Safe? We just saved your lives. How much safer can we get? That's exactly the problem, Zeftar said quietly. You saved us with casual ease. You repaired damage that our best engineers couldn't fix. You work in conditions that would kill most of us. You come from a world that shouldn't be able to support intelligent life, yet here you are, crossing space to help strangers. Rodriguez began to see the real issue. You're not afraid we'll hurt you. You're afraid of how powerful we are compared to everyone else. A species that can survive on a Class 12 world, Coleman said slowly, might be able to conquer the entire galaxy without even trying. The humans exchanged glances, realizing that their rescue mission had just become much more complicated. They had wanted to help, but instead they had revealed that humanity might be the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever seen. We don't want to conquer anyone, Katie said earnestly. We just want to explore, learn, maybe make some friends. I believe you, Zeftar said, but the Federation Council might not. They might decide that Deathworlders are too dangerous to allow into Galactic Society. Rodriguez activated his communicator again. Commander Morrison, we have a problem. A big one. Commander Morrison listened to Rodriguez's report with growing concern. The situation had become far more complex than a simple rescue mission. Humanity's first contact with alien life had revealed them to be the galactic equivalent of unstoppable monsters, regardless of their peaceful intentions. Understood, Lieutenant, Morrison replied over the communicator. Continue cultural exchange, but be prepared for immediate extraction if needed. Dr. Hayes was monitoring all communications from the science station when her sensors started screaming warnings. Commander, I'm detecting multiple ships approaching our position. Large vessels moving fast. How many? Morrison asked, moving to her station. 7 ships, sir. They're not broadcasting any identification signals, and their approach vector suggests hostile intent. Morrison felt his stomach tighten. First contact was complicated enough without adding unknown hostiles to the mix. Can you identify the ship type? Working on it, Dr. Hayes replied, adjusting her scanners. Got it. According to the Villani database we accessed, these are Kethmori vessels. The computer classifies them as raiders and slavers. On the Serenity's Grace, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Captain Zeftar rushed to his bridge, followed by the 3 humans who had been learning about galactic politics. Report, Zeftar ordered. 7 Kethmori ships approaching. Navigator Yethin announced, her voice thick with fear. "They must have detected our distress signal." "Keth Mori?" Rodriguez asked. "Pirates," Zeftar explained grimly. "They prey on disabled ships, taking cargo and crew as slaves. They must have been monitoring emergency frequencies." Engineer Coleman looked up from his station with despair. "Our weapons are offline. Hull damage severed the power conduits to our defense systems." "What about your ship?" Zeftar asked Rodriguez desperately. "Can you flee?" Rodriguez was already speaking into his communicator. "Commander Morrison, hostile ships approaching. The aliens can't fight or run." Morrison's voice came back immediately. "We see them, Sam. 7 ships, all larger than us. Bring your team back. Now!" "No," Rodriguez said firmly. "We can't abandon these people to slavers. Lieutenant, that's an order." Rodriguez looked at the terrified aliens around him, then at Katie and Alex, who were both shaking their heads. "With respect, sir, we didn't come this far to run away when people need help." On the Defiant, Morrison faced an impossible choice. The smart military decision was to retreat. 7 enemy ships against 1 human vessel meant almost certain destruction. But abandoning helpless aliens to slavery went against everything he believed in. "Sir," Dr. Hayes said quietly, "the Kethmori ships are hailing us. They're demanding we leave immediately or be destroyed." Morrison activated the main screen and found himself looking at his first hostile alien. The Kethmori captain was a large, reptilian creature with scarred skin and predatory eyes. When it spoke, the translation system rendered its voice as a threatening growl. "Human ship, you have entered a salvage zone. Depart immediately or face the consequences." "This is Commander Morrison of the Earth vessel Defiant," Morrison replied calmly. "We're conducting rescue operations for a disabled vessel. We have no quarrel with you." The Kethmori captain's eyes narrowed. "Humans? From the Class 12 world? Impossible. No Deathworld species has ever developed space travel." "Well, now you've met one. Please leave this area. We're trying to help injured people." The alien captain made a sound that might have been laughter. "Deathworlders or not, you are outnumbered 7 to 1. Surrender now, and we will only take your cargo. Resist, and we will take everything, including your lives." Morrison looked around, his bridge at the faces of his crew. He saw determination, not fear. These were people who had volunteered to explore the dangerous unknown, and they weren't about to back down from a fight to protect innocent aliens. "All hands, battle stations," Morrison announced. "This is what we came out here for, to represent humanity to the galaxy. Let's show them what Earth produces." On the Serenity's Grace, Zeftar watched in amazement as the human commander rejected the overwhelming odds and chose to fight. "They're going to fight 7 ships to protect us?" he asked Rodriguez in disbelief. "That's what humans do," Rodriguez replied simply. "We protect people who can't protect themselves." Lieutenant Ashley Parker, the Defiant's tactical officer, was already working on a battle plan. "Sir, conventional tactics won't work. We need to use the environment to our advantage." "What do you have in mind?" Morrison asked. "The asteroid field. Their ships are larger and less maneuverable than ours. If we can draw them into the densest part of the field, we might be able to even the odds." Pilot Ryan Foster looked up from his controls with a grin that would have terrified the Villani. "I can fly through spaces their ships can't follow. Make them come at us 1 or 2 at a time instead of all 7. "Do it," Morrison ordered. The Defiant suddenly accelerated directly toward the densest part of the asteroid field, weaving between tumbling rocks with precision that made the watching aliens gasp in fear and admiration. How are they flying through? That? Yathine whispered. The gravitational fields, the collision probability, the reaction time required? Deathworlders, Coleman said, with something approaching awe. They live with danger every day. This probably seems normal to them. The Kethmori ships pursued, but their larger size forced them to take wider paths around the asteroids. What had been a 7-to-1 advantage suddenly became a series of smaller engagements as the pirates struggled to coordinate their attack in the chaotic environment. First ship entering weapons range, reported Weapons Officer Maria Santos. Permission to fire? Light them up, Morrison ordered. The Defiant's weapon systems had been designed for exploring unknown space, where anything might be hostile. They were compact but powerful, and Maria used them with surgical precision. The first Kethmori ship took devastating hits to its engines and weapon arrays before it could return fire effectively. 1 down, 6 to go, she reported. Ryan Foster was flying the ship like it was part of his own body, using the asteroids as cover and weapons. When a second pirate ship tried to flank them, he led it directly into the path of a tumbling rock the size of a city building. 2 down, Foster announced with satisfaction. The remaining Kethmori ships began to spread out, trying to surround the human vessel. But the asteroid field made coordination difficult, and the humans seemed to know exactly where each rock would be at any given moment. How are they predicting the asteroid movements? The Kethmori commander snarled to his navigator. Unknown, sir. The gravitational interactions are too complex for our computers to calculate in real time. On the Defiant, Dr. Hayes was running continuous calculations on the asteroid field's dynamics, using equations that assumed constant environmental chaos. Next cluster will be in position in 30 seconds, she reported. Morrison realized that humanity's greatest advantage wasn't their weapons or their ship. It was their ability to think and fight in conditions that paralyzed other species. The Kethmori were skilled pirates, but they had never faced opponents who considered chaos a natural part of life. Maria, prepare for synchronized firing pattern 7, Morrison ordered. Sir, that pattern assumes the target will be moving through a debris field while taking evasive action. Trust me, they will be. As the battle continued, the humans fought with a combination of tactical skill and sheer audacity that left both enemies and allies stunned. They used the dangerous environment as an ally, turning the deadly asteroid field into their personal battlefield. For the first time, the galaxy was seeing what Deathworlders could do when fighting for something they believed in. The battle unfolded like a deadly dance between predator and prey, except the humans refused to play the role of prey. Ryan Foster threw the Defiant through impossible maneuvers, using the asteroid field's chaotic gravity wells to slingshot around. Massive rocks at speeds that should have torn the ship apart. Incoming missiles from Ship 4, Maria Santos reported, her hands steady on her weapons controls despite the wild flying. Multiple targets, seeking pattern. On it, Foster replied, diving the ship toward a cluster of spinning asteroids. The missiles followed, but their guidance systems couldn't handle the complex gravitational interference. 3 exploded harmlessly against rocks, while the 4th lost its target lock and spun away into space. On the Serenity's Grace, the Villani crew watched the battle in stunned silence. Their sensors showed the human ship pulling maneuvers that should be impossible, sustaining forces that would crush most species, all while maintaining perfect weapons accuracy. They're pulling 8 gravities in that turn, Engineer Coleman whispered. How are they still conscious? Deathworld evolution, Captain Zeftar replied, beginning to understand what that really meant. Their bodies can handle stresses that would kill us. Rodriguez, White, and Turner were strapped into emergency seats on the Villani Bridge, but even they looked pale from the extreme maneuvers their ship was performing. "Is this normal for human combat?" Yathine asked Rodriguez. "Actually, this is pretty tame," Rodriguez admitted. "Foster's holding back because he knows we have passengers aboard who aren't used to high-gravity maneuvers." The aliens stared at him in disbelief. This was holding back? The third Kethmori ship tried to ram the Defiant, counting on its larger size to win the collision. Foster saw it coming and did something that made even the humans gasp. He flew directly toward the enemy ship, then at the last second used a spinning asteroid's gravity to whip around it in a tight curve, bringing Maria's weapons to bear on the pirates' unprotected rear. "Direct hit on their reactor core," Maria reported. "Ship 3 is dead in space." The Kethmori commander was learning what many enemies throughout human history had discovered. Humans became more dangerous when cornered, not less. His superior, numbers weren't helping if he couldn't bring them to bear effectively. "All ships, converge on the human vessel," he ordered. "Ignore the asteroids. Ram them if necessary." But the asteroids wouldn't be ignored. As the 4 remaining pirate ships tried to close in, the chaotic gravity fields and tumbling rocks forced them into predictable paths. The humans seemed to know exactly where each ship would have to go to avoid destruction. "It's like they can see the future," the Kethmori navigator said in frustration. Dr. Hayes was indeed predicting the pirates' movements, but not through supernatural means. She was using chaos mathematics, equations designed to find patterns in seemingly random systems. On Earth, humans used such mathematics to predict weather, earthquake patterns, and other natural disasters. Ship 5 will have to pass through grid reference 247 in 90 seconds, she reported. "No other path available unless they want to crash into that rotating cluster." "Confirmed," Maria replied, already adjusting her aim. "Torpedoes armed and ready." When the Kethmori ship appeared exactly where predicted, Maria's weapons were waiting. The pirate vessel took devastating damage to its hull and lost 2 engine nacelles. 4 down, 3 to go, Morrison announced. But the battle was taking its toll on the Defiant as well. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as systems strained. Under the constant high-gravity maneuvers and enemy fire. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Chief Engineer Pete Collins over the intercom. "Sealing emergency bulkheads. We've lost 2 weapon arrays and the main communications dish." "Can you keep us flying?" Morrison asked. "As long as Foster doesn't try any 10 gravity turns, we'll hold together." "Heard and acknowledged," Foster replied. "I'll keep it under 9. The casual way the humans discussed forces that would be instantly fatal to most species made the watching Villani feel faint. The remaining 3 Kethmori ships were becoming desperate. Their hit-and-run tactics weren't working against opponents who seemed to thrive in chaos. The pirate commander decided on a direct assault, hoping to overwhelm the human ship through sheer firepower. "All ships, attack formation 7. Concentrate all fire on the human vessel." The 3 ships aligned themselves in a triangle formation and began a coordinated barrage. Energy beams and missile salvos filled space around the Defiant, forcing Foster to push his flying skills to their absolute limit. "I can't dodge all of this," he reported, sweat beading on his forehead despite the ship's climate control. "Some shots are going to get through." "Then we don't dodge," Morrison decided. "Maria, return fire on all 3 ships simultaneously. Full power." "Sir, that will drain our weapon capacitors completely. If we miss..." "We won't miss. Dr. Hayes, give me firing solutions on all 3 targets." Hayes worked frantically at her console, calculating trajectories that would hit multiple moving targets in a three-dimensional battle space filled with gravitational anomalies. Solutions uploaded. But, sir, the timing has to be perfect. Foster, can you hold us steady for 30 seconds? In this mess, against 3 ships? Foster grinned, and the expression looked predatory. Challenge accepted. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations. Ryan Foster flew the Defiant through a series of maneuvers so complex and precise that they seemed choreographed. He used asteroid, gravity wells, debris fields, and the enemy ship's own movements to position his vessel at exactly the right place at the right time. Maria Santos fired all remaining weapons in a carefully timed sequence, each shot calculated to hit targets that were exactly where Dr. Hayes had predicted they would be. The coordination required was beyond what most species could achieve, even with computer assistance, but the humans did it through instinct, training, and the kind of split-second teamwork that only developed among people who faced life-and-death situations regularly. All 3 shots found their targets. The first Keth Mori ship lost its entire weapon array. The second suffered catastrophic engine failure. The third took a direct hit to its command bridge. All enemy ships disabled, Maria reported. They're launching escape pods. Let them go, Morrison ordered. We're not in the business of killing helpless people. On the bridge of the Serenity's Grace, absolute silence greeted the end of the battle. The Volani crew stared at their sensor displays, unable to believe what they had witnessed. 7 enemy ships, all larger and supposedly more powerful than the human vessel, had been defeated in less than an hour. How? Zeftar asked simply. They fight like their world, Rodriguez explained. Chaos doesn't confuse them, it helps them. They use it as a weapon. Katie White was treating a minor injury to Alex Turner's arm, caused when the ship's violent maneuvering had thrown him against a bulkhead. The wound was bleeding, but Turner seemed completely unconcerned. "Doesn't that hurt?" Coleman asked in amazement. "Sure," Turner replied casually. "But I've had worse. This is nothing compared to what we deal with on Earth." Yethine stared at the blood on Turner's arm. "On our world, such an injury would require immediate medical intervention and several days of recovery. On our world, this would qualify as a minor scratch," Katie said, applying a simple bandage. "Alex will be fine in a few hours." The revelation hit the Volani crew like a physical blow. Not only were humans incredibly capable warriors, they were so tough that injuries that would disable other species barely slowed them down. The galaxy was about to learn that Deathworlders were not just dangerous because of their technology or their tactics. They were dangerous because pain, injury, and chaos were just normal parts of their daily existence. The aftermath of the battle brought new challenges that neither the humans nor the Volani had anticipated. The Defiant had taken significant damage during the fight, and while the ship was still spaceworthy, several critical systems needed immediate attention. "Engineering report," Commander Morrison requested as the adrenaline of combat began to fade. Chief Engineer Pete Collins appeared on the main screen, covered in grease and looking tired but satisfied. "We've got hull breaches on 3 decks. The main communications array is completely gone, and the port engine is running at 60% efficiency. The good news is that life support is stable, and we're not in immediate danger. How long for repairs?" "With our current resources? About 2 weeks. But, sir, I've been looking at the Volani ship's technical specifications. Their technology is different from ours, but it might be compatible. If we could work together." Morrison nodded. "Make it happen, Pete. Dr. Hayes, open a channel to the Serenity's Grace." Captain Zeftar's face appeared on the screen, and Morrison was struck by how different the alien looked now. The terror was gone, replaced by something that might have been awe and gratitude. "Commander Morrison," Zeftar said formally, "my people owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You risked your lives and your ship to protect strangers." "Any decent people would have done the same," Morrison replied. "But right now, both our ships need repairs. My engineer thinks our technologies might be compatible. Would you be willing to work together?" "Of course," Zeftar replied immediately. "Our resources are at your disposal." Over the next several hours, human and Villani engineers worked side by side, combining their different approaches to technology in ways that surprised everyone. The humans brought creativity and adaptability, solving problems with improvised solutions that shouldn't have worked but did. The Villani contributed precision and efficiency, refining human fixes into elegant, permanent solutions. Dr. Hayes found herself working closely with Villani scientists, comparing notes on everything from physics to biology. The cultural exchange was as valuable as the technical cooperation. "Your people's approach to engineering is fascinating," Dr. Hayes told Engineer Coleman as they calibrated a hybrid communications array. "You design for perfection and efficiency. We design for survival and adaptability. And both approaches have value," Coleman replied, his initial fear of humans now replaced by professional respect. "Your improvised repairs yesterday worked, better than our original systems. But combining them with our precision engineering has created something superior to either approach alone." The cooperation wasn't limited to technology. Medic Katie White was sharing medical knowledge with the Villani medical staff, though the differences between the species made direct treatment impossible. "Your people's healing capabilities are extraordinary," the Villani chief medic observed. "You recover from injuries that would be permanently disabling to us. And your medical technology is incredibly advanced," Katie replied. "You can perform cellular repairs that we can only dream of. If we could combine human resilience with Villani medical precision, the possibilities were exciting for both species." Security Chief Alex Turner was teaching Villani security personnel about human combat tactics, though he had to carefully adapt the lessons for beings who couldn't survive the physical stresses of human warfare. "The key to human tactics is adaptability," he explained. "We assume that our plans will fail and prepare multiple backup options. We use our environment as a weapon and treat chaos as an ally rather than an enemy." "But how do you maintain coordination in such conditions?" asked the Villani security chief. "Training and trust," Turner replied. "Human military units train together until they can anticipate each other's actions without communication. In battle, we trust our teammates to do their jobs while we focus on our own." The concept of functioning effectively without constant communication was alien to the Villani, who relied on detailed coordination and careful planning. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Rodriguez was learning about galactic politics and culture from Captain Zeftar. The more he learned, the more he realized how unprecedented humanity's situation was. No species from a world higher than Class 4 has ever achieved spaceflight, Zeftar explained. The environmental challenges make technological development extremely difficult. "How did you know about Class 12 worlds if no one has ever visited them?" Rodriguez asked. "Theoretical studies based on long-range observations. The Federation cataloged such worlds as scientific curiosities, never imagining they could support intelligent life. What will happen when we make official contact with your Federation?" Zeftar was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. The Federation Council has protocols for first contact, but they assume contact with species from safe, stable worlds. Peaceful species that pose no threat to the galactic community. We don't pose a threat, Rodriguez protested. Don't you? Zeftar asked gently. You just defeated 7 warships with a single vessel. You repaired damage that our best engineers couldn't fix. You work in conditions that would kill most of us. Whether you intend it or not, humans represent a level of capability that could destabilize the entire galactic balance. Rodriguez began to understand the real problem. It wasn't that humans were evil or aggressive. It was that they were so much more capable than everyone else that their very existence changed everything. As the repairs continued, the two crews began to genuinely like and respect each other. The Villani overcame their fear of Deathworlders, while the humans learned to appreciate the aliens' gentleness and wisdom. You know, Katie White said to Dr. Hayes as they watched human and Villani engineers working together. Maybe this is exactly what both our species needed. How so? We give them strength and protection. They give us culture and wisdom. Humans are survivors, but the Villani are builders of civilization. Together, we could create something amazing. Dr. Hayes nodded thoughtfully. The Federation seems to be based on mutual cooperation between peaceful species. Maybe they need someone who can handle the dangerous situations they can't face themselves. On the bridge of the Serenity's Grace, Captain Zeftar was having similar thoughts. His people were peaceful explorers and scientists, but the galaxy held dangers they couldn't handle alone. Pirates, natural disasters, hostile environments, all the things that would terrify most Federation species were routine challenges for humans. Perhaps, he said to Navigator Yathine, the galaxy needs Deathworlders. Someone has to be able to go into the dangerous places and do the impossible things. But can we trust them? Yathine asked. Zeftar looked at the main screen, which showed human and Villani crew members working together, sharing knowledge and laughing at each other's jokes despite the language barriers. They risked their lives to save strangers, he said finally. They could have fled when the Kethmori arrived, but they stayed to protect us. If that's not trustworthy, I don't know what is. As the two ships completed their repairs and prepared to part ways, both crews knew that something important had happened. First contact between humans and aliens had been successful, not because of careful protocols or diplomatic planning, but because both species had chosen to help each other when help was needed. The humans had proven that Deathworlders could be protectors rather than conquerors. The Villani had proven that not all aliens would fear and reject humanity. Together, they had created a foundation for something unprecedented in galactic history, a partnership between the strong and the gentle, the survivors and the builders. But the real test would come when they reached Federation space, and humanity had to prove itself to an entire galaxy of peaceful species who had never encountered anything like them. The journey to Federation space took 3 days, during which the crews of both ships worked to prepare for what might be the most important diplomatic contact in galactic history. Captain Zeftar spent hours composing his report to the Federation Council, trying to explain how he had made contact with a Class 12 Deathworld species without causing panic. How do I tell them that humans are both incredibly dangerous and completely trustworthy? He asked Dr. Hayes during one of their regular communication sessions. Tell them the truth, she replied simply. We're dangerous because our world made us that way. But we're trustworthy because our world also taught us to value life and cooperation. Commander Morrison was facing his own challenges, preparing his crew for contact with an entire civilization that might see them as monsters. Remember, he told his senior staff, we're representing all of humanity here. Every word, every action. will be studied and judged. No pressure, muttered Lieutenant Rodriguez, which made the others laugh despite the tension. The first sign of Federation space was a series of automated beacons that scanned both ships as they passed. The technology was elegant and sophisticated, clearly designed by species that had never needed to worry about stealth or deception. Federation control to unknown vessels, came a transmission in perfect galactic standard. Please identify yourselves and state your business in Federation space. Captain Zeftar responded first. This is Captain Zeftar of the Villani vessel, Serenity's Grace, returning from a scientific survey mission. I am accompanied by representatives of a newly contacted species. There was a long pause before the response came. Captain Zeftar, you are ordered to proceed directly to Harmony Station for immediate debriefing. Do not communicate with any other vessels or stations until you have been cleared by the first contact office. Acknowledged, Federation Control. Harmony Station was visible from a great distance, a massive structure that looked more like a city than a space station. Dozens of different ship designs docked at its numerous ports, representing the diverse species of the Federation. It's beautiful, Dr. Hayes breathed, watching the station grow larger on their screens. It represents 400 years of peaceful cooperation, Zeftar told her proudly. Every species that has joined the Federation has added something to its design and culture. As they approached the station, more ships appeared on their sensors. Military vessels, but clearly designed for defense rather than aggression. Their lines were smooth and elegant, built by species that had never needed to prioritize armor over aesthetics. Federation Escort Squadron to Human Vessel, came a new transmission. You are ordered to maintain your current course and speed. Any deviation will be considered a hostile act. Commander Morrison activated his communications array. This is Commander Morrison of the Earth vessel Defiant. We are here peacefully at the invitation of Captain Zeftar. We request permission to dock and begin formal diplomatic contact. Permission denied, came the immediate reply. Unknown vessels from unclassified worlds are not permitted to dock at Federation facilities without extensive security screening. Zeftar quickly opened a communication channel. Federation Control, I take full responsibility for the human ship. They saved my vessel and crew from Kethmori raiders. They have proven themselves to be peaceful and honorable. Another long pause. Captain Zeftar, report to Conference Bay 7 immediately upon docking. Bring minimal crew and no external equipment. The unknown vessel will remain under guard until a decision is made regarding their status. The docking process took nearly an hour, complicated by the fact that Harmony Station had never been designed to accommodate ships from Deathworlds. The Defiant's thicker hull and redundant systems made it significantly different from typical Federation vessels. They're treating us like we're radioactive, observed Security Chief Turner as he watched Federation personnel in full environmental suits directing the docking procedure. To them, we probably are, replied Morrison. Remember, they've never encountered anyone from a world like Earth. Captain Zeftar selected Navigator Yathine and Engineer Coleman to accompany him to the conference, both of whom had worked closely with the humans and could testify to their character. Commander Morrison chose Dr. Hayes and Lieutenant Rodriguez to represent humanity, figuring that a scientist and a diplomatic officer would seem less threatening than military personnel. Conference Bay 7 was a vast circular room with seating for hundreds of beings. Representatives from dozens of species sat in carefully arranged sections, each group adapted to their specific environmental needs. At the center of the room was a raised platform where Captain Zeftar and his companions stood, facing the Federation Council. The council speaker was a tall, crystalline being whose voice rang like musical chimes. Captain Zeftar, you have submitted a report claiming to have made contact with intelligent life from a Class 12 Deathworld. Explain how this extraordinary situation occurred. Zeftar told the story simply and honestly, from the asteroid field, accident through the Keth Mori attack to the cooperative repairs that followed. As he spoke, holographic displays showed technical data from both ships, sensor recordings of the battle, and images of humans and Villani working together. The humans risked their lives to save strangers, Zeftar concluded. They could have fled when faced with overwhelming odds, but they chose to fight to protect my crew. If that is not the behavior of a species worthy of Federation membership, I don't know what is. Murmurs ran through the assembly, some concerned, others curious. The council speaker gestured for silence. We will now hear from the human representatives, the speaker announced. Be aware that this chamber is equipped with advanced threat detection systems. Any aggressive action will result in immediate containment. Dr. Hayes stepped forward, her calm demeanor hiding her nervousness. Honored Council, my name is Dr. Lisa Hayes, representing the people of Earth. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship with the species of the galaxy. Dr. Hayes, the speaker replied, our records indicate that your homeworld is a Class 12 environment. How did your species survive such hostile conditions long enough to develop space travel? By learning to work together, Hayes replied. Earth is dangerous, but it taught us that cooperation and mutual aid are essential for survival. We help each other because we know that alone, none of us can survive. A representative from the Altarian delegation stood up. What assurance can you give that your species will not use its obvious military capabilities to threaten peaceful worlds? Lieutenant Rodriguez answered this time. The same assurance that any peaceful species can give. Our word and our actions. We've had the capability to wage war on our own world for generations, but we chose to reach for the stars instead. We seek exploration and knowledge, not conquest. But your capabilities are extraordinary, pressed another council member. Our analysis of the battle data shows tactical and technological abilities far beyond what most species possess. How can we trust that you won't use such capabilities against us? Dr. Hayes looked around the chamber, seeing fear and uncertainty in many faces, but also curiosity and hope in others. Because we need you as much as you need us. Humans are good at surviving and protecting, but we're not as good at building stable societies or preserving knowledge. Captain Zeftar's people have created something beautiful here. A civilization based on cooperation and shared wisdom. We want to be part of that, not destroy it. Captain Zeftar stepped forward. If I may, honored council, I believe the question is not whether we can trust the humans, but whether we can afford not to. The galaxy contains dangers that peaceful species cannot handle alone. Pirates, natural disasters, hostile environments, all the things that threaten our explorers. And traders. Humans can go where we cannot, do what we cannot, protect what we cannot protect. Are you suggesting that we recruit Deathworlders as mercenaries? Asked the speaker, and there was disapproval in its crystalline voice. No, Zeftar replied firmly. I'm suggesting that we invite them as partners. They have strengths we lack, and we have knowledge they need. Together, we could create something greater than either could achieve alone. The debate continued for hours, with representatives from various species asking questions about human biology, psychology, technology, and intentions. Some were clearly terrified of admitting Deathworlders to the Federation. Others saw the potential benefits of having allies who could handle dangerous situations. Finally, the council speaker called for quiet. This is an unprecedented situation that requires careful consideration. The council will deliberate for 3 days before making a decision. Until then, the human vessel will remain under observation, and its crew will be restricted to their ship. As the session ended, Captain Zeftar approached the human representatives. "I'm sorry about the restrictions. The council is frightened, but they're also intrigued. This is further than any Deathworld species has ever gotten in Federation politics. 3 days isn't long to decide the future of human-alien relations," Dr. Hayes observed. "No," Zeftar agreed. "But it's long enough for them to study your actions and character. The Federation values behavior over words. If you remain peaceful and cooperative during this waiting period, it will speak in your favor." Commander Morrison and his crew spent the next